Everyone is spending so much money on lighting. So, why do I prefer the look of natural light? Cinematographers are all upping their lighting game to get the most pop out of their images. But I've always found it more intriguing to scavenge for light. To me, the best light source is the sun, and the best diffusion is a cover of clouds. So, I wonder, do you really need motivated lighting when you can do it for free? With natural lighting, you just need patience and planning. Overcast is my favorite weather to shoot in, as it's relatively consistent for long periods of time, aside for when it rains. But even if it does rain, I think it looks amazing too. Just make sure you protect your camera. Not all overcast is equal, with some looking better than others depending on the thickness of the clouds and time of day. I generally love the look of heavy overcast compared to sparse cloudiness, as it provides stronger diffusion and allows me more flexibility with apertures. As long as there are no large pockets of sunshine, cloud cover allows for soft homogeneous diffusion that makes skin look pleasing. I think it's pretty hard to mess up skin tones in overcast, since it creates softer roll-off by bouncing light on faces more evenly. The desaturated look has a moody atmosphere, which is a vibe that I'm particularly partial to, though it's not always suitable as it can be ominous or foreboding. Overcast during sunset is one of my favorite times to shoot indoors, which I often utilize for macro shots. You can just film next to any window, and you have easy, soft lighting. Large windows are especially your friend. Although it may be solemn and gloomy, I think everything looks cinematic in this lighting. Clear skies can be cheerful and ordinary, also making it unpredictable. If you really wanted to shock the audience in a turn of events, sunny weather should be considered, since overcast gives the audience a hint that something is off. Sunny weather doesn't raise any alarms, and can put the viewer in a false sense of security when you want to implement the plot twist. Filming at noon can be quite difficult to do, as shadows are very harsh and highlights are very strong. I prefer to shoot sunny weather in the afternoon, as sunlight is less intense on a subject's face. Conversely, you could also shoot in the morning, but as I have chronic insomnia, I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. As everything is covered in light, you may want to try and incorporate shadows into the scene so there's more dimensionality, unless you want to keep that neutral feeling. I particularly like film grades and how greens look in this weather, but I don't really like to backlight here, as I find the face too dark requiring bounce, or perhaps ground covered in snow. At around 3 p.m., the rays of sunlight begin to form angles. It can look especially fantastic, filling open ceiling interiors by bouncing off walls or retaining dramatic shadows. You can find beautiful spots anywhere, as long as you can recognize the potential of bounced light, which can be shaped through the most unassuming, natural, and man-made structures, so be on the lookout. Just make sure you have a good ND filter, around 6 stops so you don't clip your highlights. This is the most magical time of day to shoot, as it's the most difficult to capture. Sometimes you only have a few minutes for just that perfect amount of light, but that makes golden hour all the more special. Backlighting with sunset or from the side can serve as hair light, adding a lovely halo effect. Golden hour can equally look gorgeous when directly lit on the subject as well. It also creates longer shadows and softly bounces in interiors through windows. If you find it too strong, you can shape the light and its intensity with curtains. You should bear in mind the seasonality and geography, as winter sun can set as early as 5 p.m. You could use ND3 or 6 here, but to be honest, it's okay to clip a bit of the sun, though you may still want to consider stopping down to see more of the background, as underexposing to create silhouettes also looks dynamic. It's important to understand the balance of light and shadows, as they are especially interconnected here. The asymmetry of light is also something that shouldn't be overlooked, as sometimes you may want light or shadows on the left or right side of the frame. Depending on how deliberately composed the frame is, I feel it can elicit a darker emotional response when the sunset is on the left. But if I wanted to have a more natural and hopeful vibe, I'd maybe opt for the sun on the right, conveying a more natural progression of the sunset. Just make sure you make up your mind quickly, as the sun sets pretty quickly during golden hour. Blue hour or magic hour is after sunset, when the sun is 4 degrees below the horizon line, hidden yet still illuminating the sky. Depending on air quality, you can get changing hues with clear weather giving you the bluest skies. Cities typically don't have the most unpolluted skies, by the way. Blue hour is also pleasant on the skin due to its soft light and evokes a feeling of tranquility. When shooting toward the fading light, I usually opt to protect highlights to create dark silhouettes. You typically won't need an ND filter and can start shooting wide open. White balance can be open to interpretation here, as you can lower the previous sunset white balance to get bluer skies, or raise it to get more orange, somewhere around 5,000 to 7,000 Kelvin. Like sunset, the challenge is time, as you will typically only have a 20-minute window before it gets dark. Just be aware that the time of year, geography, and air quality have a significant impact, with it being shorter in countries closer to the equator and longer near the polar circles. In China, my horizon line is usually blocked by mountains, which make it more difficult to gauge blue hour, especially due to light pollution. As the image is cooler during this time, you can consider adding more yellow or orange tones to the frame when possible to add some contrast. The purpose of this video is that the conversations that center around lighting these days don't focus enough on natural light, which confuses me when some of the most beautiful scenes are barely shot with any supplementary light at all. If you plan properly, you can utilize natural lighting for interiors as well. Sunset is typically the best time for this, as the angle of light can be shaped by windows to fill the room. Although this can be replicated with artificial lighting, it doesn't always have the same softness to me. It can lead to some incongruity when switching between indoor and outdoor scenes. Artificial lighting is undoubtedly powerful and allows for consistency of long shoots. It can give you a more stylized look, making your subject pop. But for those chasing organic looks, natural lighting might bring you better results. Of course, it's not without faults, as natural light is also inconsistent, not to mention unpredictable. But that's what makes it so magical, and you can find great lighting in naturally occurring places by just being resourceful. I don't know if one is better than the other. I just felt like making a love letter to natural lighting. And don't forget, your background music and story are just as important.